Let's meet another candidate for you guys, Dorothy Gasque. She's running in the great state of Washington in the 3rd District. Dorothy, welcome. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. I'm great. Okay. So first of all, no corporate PAC money?
Nope.
Uncorrupted, unbought, unbowed. And secondly, I want to talk about you first. You know, your opponent's a bad person, as usual with the Republicans. Okay, we'll get to them in a second. But I see here that you were deployed to Iraq as the only woman among more than 350 men in her combat unit. How'd that happen?
Well, it's my job at the time. I was a missile systems technician. I worked on the anti-tank missile systems of TOW, Dragon, and Javelin. And
that's already super cool, by the way.
I was stationed at Fort Irwin here in California, and they deployed us, and we were the trainers. We had no expectation of getting deployed. We were not like a full combat unit, and they needed an E5, and I was one of 2, and we had 2 units splitting and going, so both of us got deployed.
Yeah, look, every piece of military jargon seems cool to me, maybe because I didn't serve. So even like E5, I'm like, oh, that's so cool to be an E5. Okay, and the only experience I had with Dragon is Game of Thrones. So everything you did sounds amazing. So where'd you get deployed in Iraq?
It was Iskandariyah. It's kind of like, it's about 40 miles south of Baghdad.
Okay, so how did you wind up going in the military in the first place? Where did you grow up, and why the military?
Well, I was a military brat, so I grew up all over, but mostly in Southern California. My dad was also stationed at Fort Irwin. But I come from a family of public servants. My grandfather was in the State Department, and my father in the Army, my brother a Marine. We just were taught to serve.
Yeah, you got kids now?
I have a 16-year-old.
How do you feel about if he were to sign up? I mean, to go and fight in Afghanistan, which is unbelievably still going.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the big things that drives me to run is that my son was an infant when we went to war in Afghanistan. He's 16, so 16 years later, we're not only still in Afghanistan, but we're now in at least 13 countries, 2 continents, and probably more that we don't even know about. And that's just, it's unsustainable, it's absurd, and it's a drain on our resources, and it harms life.
So let's talk about what you would do if you were in Congress. So what would you do about that situation? Whether it's Afghanistan or the 13 countries we're in or Syria, these are not easy questions. So I'm just curious, you know, what would be your take?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, we have to take on campaign finance. That's the biggest thing. The reason why we're in all these wars, the reason why we can't get health care, the reason why we can't do anything about climate change is because the lobbyists can donate directly to politicians and kill the favorable bills and push forward the policies that they want. And then after that, it's just, you know, we really have to work on peace. We have to figure out how do we get there. And it's Congress's job, and they've been abdicating it to the executive branch since the Korean War. And that's really something that we have to take back and say, no, that is Congress's job. It is, there's a reason it's Congress's job. There's a reason it's written into the Constitution, is that you don't want one person making that decision and one person sending us for profit.
Yeah, so especially if you serve in the military, because you know, all this money goes to the Pentagon, and it was like $600 billion. They have now cranked it up to nearly $700 billion. And you were in the military. Did you get that money?
No, so it's one of the things I talk about a lot. It doesn't correlate to military readiness. A lot of that money is wasted. Most of it's wasted. I tell this story about, so when we got ready to deploy, and when we got to Kuwait, we had to start armoring our own vehicles. So we started welding steel plates onto our own vehicles. Like I had to learn how to weld and cut metal, and you know, and we didn't get armored vehicles. So none of this money is being spent on the actual equipment we need. It's just, it's being wasted. It's being wasted on equipment that just goes straight to the boneyard.
Yeah, so I remember Rumsfeld's famous quote about that. We covered it on the Young Turks when he said, you go to the war with the army you have, not the one you wish you had. Yeah, the army you have doesn't protect your soldiers and your troops. What it does is spend billions of dollars on defense contractors for equipment that they never use, but they all got rich off of. So it's maddening, and that's why it's so important why that you and all the other Justice Democrats are uncorrupted and you don't take corporate PAC money, so you're going to serve the voters. So tell us, and by the way, I want to put up the links for Dorothy. And look, time is more important than money. If you can volunteer, our warriors are going to beat their mercenaries, okay? And I'm not just saying that because Dorothy was in the military, okay? So volunteer there, but if you can't spend the time, then you got to at least, if you want them to be uncorrupted and you don't want them taking corporate PAC money, then chip in a little bit. That's the donation link there, and obviously you could find out more at our website, and all the links are down below. You don't have to memorize them, don't worry, just click on them if you're watching this on YouTube or on the comment section on Facebook. So, Dorothy, let's talk about your opponent a little bit. Who is it and what have they done?
It's Representative Jaime Herrera Beutler, and she's done a whole lot of nothing.
Okay, that sounds about right. Did she vote for the tax cuts?
She did.
Of course she did. Okay, did she fight like hell to protect the internet and say don't do net neutrality?
No, she says she would like real net neutrality, whatever that means.
Yeah, it was. We had real net neutrality until a week ago. So that means you want to keep taking donor money. That's what that means. Is she going to fight for Medicare for all?
No, no. She's adamantly against single payer.
So I don't know if you know this, because a lot of the Republicans in blue states like Washington, obviously each district's a little bit different, pretend to be moderate, right? So do you know what percentage of the time she voted with Trump?
She's around the 85, I think.
Oh,
maybe
only 85%.
Maybe higher now after the tax bill.
Okay, all right. So, so then you've got other Democrats in the primary, of course. Let me guess, a lot of them are taking PAC money?
Well, there's only really one other one that's really going to be fundraising.
So. Okay, yeah, and so has the DCCC rushed in and said, Dorothy, how can we help? We hear you're an uncorrupted progressive.
No, they've been campaigning for the other candidate before she announced. So it's.
Say it with me. Of course they did. Anyway, so that's what primaries are for, and you've been in battle before, so this is nothing compared to that. So let's talk about your priorities. Okay, so you talked about getting money out of politics, talked about the military, what else?
Healthcare, infrastructure, economic security. Those are the big things.
So Medicare for all?
Absolutely.
I don't know why they don't let us in. Can you just please let us in? Like Medicare's got a 77% approval rating because it kind of works. Let us in. It's not that much hard to ask for. Anyway, $15 minimum wage?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, probably more by the time we actually implemented it. It's a living wage where I live is $21 an hour now. Yeah,
see that's the kind of strong talk I like. At least $15, okay? We're not starting as the end point, we're starting that as the beginning point. So I'm curious, how did the Justice Democrats find you?
Well, we got nominated.
So someone you knew went through the process when we talked about it and they nominated you.
Yeah, we actually had several nominations.
That's awesome. Did you ever figure out who nominated you?
Yeah, well, I know who it is. I mean, we kind of organized it. So my campaign manager organized the nominations.
But that's the kind of thing you need to win. Okay. Okay, but then that's just the beginning of the process. Yeah. So then they talked to you, and so what happened next?
So I mean, it's an extensive process, and they really go through a good vetting process, ensuring that we're viable and that we're not going to be corrupted, and that we're going to stick to the messaging, and they'll kick you out if you mess up.
Yeah, well, so I hear. And it's happened with candidates before too. If they're not sticking to the issues and the things that the priorities that people care about. So. And then, so they go through all that hard work of finding you, making sure that you're the right candidate, and then you, of course, have to pledge not to take the corporate PAC money, right?
Yeah, it was an easy pledge.
Okay, so that was easy for you. So what were you doing right before running for Congress?
Well, I had been organizing the progressive movement in Southwest Washington. I started with the Bernie campaign. I was the lead grassroots organizer there, and then during the process, I realized how kind of dysfunctional the Democratic Party was locally, and so I, worked on getting people in. what we call PCOs is our lowest level voting members within the party. They're precinct committee officers. So getting them in and then getting people elected to the state committee and then getting rid of the chair and kind of really just changing. And Washington State's probably leading the pack on changing the Democratic Party to make it more friendly to grassroots.
So how so? Just real quick, we got a minute left.
We took over about 75% of the state committee seats. I think we increased PCO participation by like 75% across the state, and just teaching people how it works and what they need to do. And then trying to support each other. We've lost a lot of people along the process. There's a lot of bullying that sort of happens within the party, and they kick out a lot of really good people. So we just kind of have to keep building up those reinforcements.
All right, strong progressives. So Dorothy, thank you for joining us at Rebel Headquarters. We appreciate it.